Hello, I'm Anthony. I'm constantly looking for different ways to start the songwriting process. I think right at the very beginning, when you're starting to write a piece of music, the decisions that you make in those first few minutes or couple of hours have an enormous impact on everything else that follows. I liken it to a game of snooker. Every single game of snooker starts it with the balls in exactly the same configuration, and after the very first strike, every subsequent game of snooker is completely different, fundamentally different from that instant moment. Tiny variances of impacts between all of those different objects result in a different game every time. So the start of the songwriting process is hugely important. What I'm going to show you here today is something that evolved over the course of a couple of days. I recorded various versions of this project as it was going along, and what I'll show you at the end of the episode is something that's just at the beginning of being a song. I've got nothing more than a bass line and a rhythm section in an extremely prototype form, but I've gone to what we started with, which I'm going to show you in a minute, is just a single note, to something that I'm actually starting to be kind of inspired by. So this is where it all started. I was sat with a completely empty project, loving playing with the Chapman stick at the moment, so I wanted to write something using that instrument. And so I started off with a click track and literally just played a single note. So it couldn't be less interesting to begin with. So where do you go from there? And this was actually the first mistake that I made, and I think mistakes are just as important as anything. I started adding more tonal sounds. I wanted to introduce this deep synth tone. It turns out that that wasn't really very helpful, because all it's doing is obscuring the bass line. So this was one of those ideas where, or one of those moments where you're kind of trying to get going, generating that momentum from the standing start is very, very difficult, and very often you make mistakes. But I think it's really important as soon as possible to identify, that's not really what I want to do next. So within a few minutes of playing with this thing, I actually recorded this very, very long evolving synth tone. You can see me playing with all of the various different controls in the synth. Threw all of that away very quickly. No, that's not what I want to do. What I want to do is get a rhythm up and running, because rhythm is the heart of everything. I hate playing to a click track. So the moment I can get out of playing along to a click track, I'm going to do that. So I decided I wanted a percussion sound. Now, I'm absolutely loving some of these world instruments in Contact at the moment. So I dialed up this tombak from the Middle East collection and sat there for this long. How long does this run for? The best part of 6 minutes, where I just literally tapped in notes. I went through every note on the instrument to find all of the stuff that I was interested in. And then over the course of about 6 minutes, just played completely freeform, totally relaxed, just following along with the click track, doing whatever I felt like. I only kept a very tiny amount of this. I'll just play you a small section of it now. Bit loud. And that was the end of session number 1. I was really happy with the percussion sound. I knew that there was something good there. I thought, well, I'll come back to this 6 minutes of percussion tomorrow and I'll find the best bits. And that's what we do in version 2. As you can see, I actually started writing this music on the 6th of May. I haven't even given it a title yet. It's just the date that it started on. So I went through that 6 minutes of percussion. As you can see, muted the Hallian line, don't need that anymore. And I picked out the best bits of that 6 minute performance. So we still have absolutely no concept of a song. I've just thrown this 6 minute bass line, this single note bass line down to give me something to play over the top of. And I've ended up with these 4 sections of percussion sound that were the most interesting to me, where I thought I was doing something marginally interesting or novel. Let's just have a listen to a very small section of this. Generally speaking, I play the percussion on the keyboard. I do have an I machine, and occasionally I'll play on the pads, But more often than not, I actually prefer playing on the keyboard. It just feels more natural. I've never learned to do proper finger drumming. I'm not interested in doing performance art. I just want to be able to just relax and figure out all of the notes that are interesting and kind of just remember where they are and then play completely freeform patterns. I don't try to overthink percussion at all. So as you can see, I've got these 4 sections now where something reasonably interesting is starting to happen, but I've still got absolutely no concept of a song at all. Probably spent about an hour doing that, save Cubase, come back a little bit later. One of the big takeaways from this is that I don't try to force inspiration. You cannot require inspiration to jump to your beck and call. That's not how it works. I'll load the project up, I'll sit at the keyboard completely absent-mindedly, not consciously or deliberately trying to do anything, see what pops out. So this time, when I loaded the project up, I thought, well, a one-note bass line isn't going to do it for the entire thing. Let's see if we can come up with a second idea. So you can see that I've muted the stick, created myself a new MIDI track, and now I've got a new bass line to play with. So let's have a look at the second evolution. So this is the very marginal evolution of the bass line. Still not winning any awards, but at least it's taken me in the right direction. And I was happy with that. That was an entire session, maybe half an hour, 40 minutes, playing around on the keyboard, and that's all that came out of it. Nothing else was saved. Getting frustrated with lack of inspiration is the worst thing you can possibly do. Here we are at version 4. All I've done in this version is taken those 2 simple bass ideas and glued them together, 2 8-bar parts. So now I have a 16-bar section. I then went back into the percussion line and honed it to the point where I was happy that that 16-bar percussion line was fitting neatly over the top, or underneath if you like, of the 16-bar bass line, and that's what we've got here. I always know when I'm on the right line when my shoulders start to move or my head kind of starts nodding side to side. Think, right, okay, I've got a groove going now. This is interesting. This is really only good enough as an intro. I'm not going to be able to do this very often unless I'm creative with bringing the bass line right down. But when it breaks into this section, I've got now evolution. Something is happening and I'm starting to feel like this is the beginnings of a song. The very next thing that I need to do is make it an actual song rather than just a musical idea. And that's what's happened with version 5. You can see slightly evolving percussion sections, but most importantly, I've really started thinking about it in the context of a song. And as you can see, I've added articulations to this bass line. So this is a Trillium preset from Omnisphere, and you get all these different articulations to play with that just make the Chapman stick absolutely come alive. So I'm getting to this point now where I'm invested. I think, right, this idea is good enough. I'm now going to start doubling down and finding the detail that make it kind of really cool. More evolution to the percussion line, focused in on the bits that I was most happy with. There was a kind of whatever that F sharp is there. I like that sound, so I wanted more of that. So now I'll play this bass line with the percussion over the top, and I've also started to think about what melodic instruments I'm going to want in the background. At the moment, just playing with a simple organ sound, but I'm starting to feel musical. Oh, those articulations. Love it. Here I am, 5 sessions later. It's taken me 3 or 4 hours to get to this point, but finally, through patience and just kind of nerdling around, I found something that's making me want to be creative. I want to pick up the guitar and jam along to this thing and start having fun. Hope you enjoyed that. Please hit like if you did. I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.